الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, today we will continue the era of Khattab radiallahu anhu. Last 4 weeks we were talking about the judiciary or the judicial system in the era of Khattab radiallahu anhu, and how the institution of the judiciary was institutionalized because of the expansion of the Islamic land in the time of Khattab. It required more systematic way of judiciary or the judicial system. We talked about how Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu was choosing the judges and how he was making sure that they were ruling by Islam or passing judgments, to be very specific. And we also talked about the swift way of justice that Islam requires us to have. Today, inshallah, we'll start off a new topic within the era of Khattab, which was also linked to expansion of the land and the population was increasing of the Muslims, which is about the governors, governorship in the time of Umar. And when we talk about the governors, we talk about various things, the way we talked about the judges as well, because this is one of the pillars in the state that is running by Islam. In the time of Rasulullah, we see that Medina was the center. Rasulullah migrated from Mecca to Medina, and from there, because that was the first state that was established, and then on was this expansion happening. And the same thing that continued on in the time of Abu Bakr and the Khattab, and continued on for the past centuries. And then it's an unfortunate time and days we're living in. For the past 100 years, we don't have any place where Islam is implemented now, as a whole. Now, when we talk about the land was expanded, it was very swift in the time of Umar. As we will talk about some of the provinces or the wilayat that were created in the time of Umar. But to understand that this has to be understood when we are talking about Umar or any of the caliphs. They are the caretaker as a whole of the Ummah, as the hadith of Rasulullah talks about. It says that كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. Every one of you is a shepherd, meaning a caretaker, and he is accountable. He's a mas'ul, he's accountable, questionable on the day of judgment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, about his subjects. Like the hadith goes on, the imam is the caretaker of the whole ummah. Similarly, talks about the woman is the caretaker of the house, of the husband, of the children, and husband is the caretaker of his family, and then it goes on and kind of talks about that all the people are caretaker. All the people have their responsibility and their accountability. In this case, because Imam is on the top of the whole ummah, he is the caretaker of the whole ummah, and hence he is accountable for the whole ummah. Okay? Now, when we look from that perspective, you can see that if Umar Khattab, whose state you see that was spread across hundreds of thousands of miles, square miles. And now, when we are talking about that kind of a land, how can he, especially when we talk about when means of communication were very few or very slow compared to today's time. So how would he be able to get the information? To do that, you assign the job that is on your neck to others, meaning they are your representative who are doing the job that the Khalifa of Islam should be doing. And that's what this is the Wilaya concept, the concept of governorship, the concept of, you can think of it that all the areas come into existence and that these are administrative regions where the head of assigns the governors, and he becomes the caretaker. That's what means by the wali. That's what means by the governor that we are talking about. Otherwise, he is representative from the Khalifa, and he is accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the region that he is ruling over. But he is at the end, he has to, he's responsible in front of the Khalifa for all the doings that he is doing. It's not that he is doing of his own anything. Okay. So now, when we talk about that, we see that the state was divided into huge areas. There were regions like Mecca was one region, Medina became one region, Taif was another, Yemen was another, Bahrain, Egypt, Iraq. And Iraq itself had many multiple small regions, even though they are pretty big, that include Basra, Kufa, and then Azerbaijan. All these areas had their own governorship or the governors. That Umar was assigning these governorship to different people. And what we find is, because he is accountable, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is the one who is responsible, we find him that he is assigning the task, and if he finds that somebody is short, he's come to do taking care of the job, then he will also remove the people from their positions as well. It was not that just you assign the job and you think, okay, we'll take care of it, don't worry about it. At the end of the day, Allah himself, whoever becomes the head of the state, he is accountable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Makkah, when it comes to that one, Umar assigned different governors over there, and I will not go into the names of all those governors, rather, and I talk about the importance of those regions a little bit. Makkah, one of the key role that Makkah played was Makkah because of the Haram, because of the Kaaba. People would gather on a yearly basis, especially for the Hajj. And Hajj became the place for all the governors of the region and all the rulers of different places. They would gather and they would give the reports to the Amir al-Mu'mineen at that time. Or even they can exchange the notes from each other as well, how they are facing different kinds of problems and how they are overcoming those different kinds of problems. So this is one of the most important things that we find about the Mecca. When it comes to Medina was the center of the state as the time of Rasulullah, and it continued on in the time of Abu Bakr, Umar, and we see that that's the center means that's the Darul Khilafah, I call them, or that's the capital where Khalifa resided. Hence, it did not require a governor because he himself was ruling from there. Now, like Rasulullah's time, whenever Umar left Medina, he would leave somebody behind who was taking care of the affairs of Medina. As you can see, the Seerah Rasulullah went to many different battles, went for Hajj, Umrah. You find him that he left somebody behind to be the caretaker of Medina. Same way, Umar, we find that some of the people that he left behind include Zayd bin Thabit and Ali bin Abi Talib. And this, I like to stress over and over, whenever you hear the name of Ali in the time of Umar, that shows that how closely tied they were. Unfortunately, nowadays you find people think of it as if Ali and Umar were at each other's face or something. They have animosity between each other or something. What we see is they had a very huge trust among each other. To the point, Umar would leave Ali as a caretaker when he's out. And as I mentioned before, also when we talked about the Bayt, Umar was married to the daughter of Ali as well, Kulthum. So, and that's not the subject here, but I would like to mention that this is how the affairs will run. Another province, or what I call a big city at that time, was Taif. Taif was the land that produced very strong fighters. And those fighters played a huge role in the expansion of the land of Islam at the time. Taif is the same province as we know of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through the da'wah. When he was in Mecca, he faced with a very difficult time to the point sent the youth to throw stones at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his head was bleeding and his shoe was filled with blood. And then we know the whole story of when he went into the valley, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an angel, Jibreel, and he mentioned that the angel of the mountain is there. It was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and crushed all of them in between those two mountains. But Rasulullah made the dua rather than dua against them. He made the dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring the believers from the loins of the insane people. And we see that those fighters came out of that. Not only that, as I mentioned before, also Muhammad bin Qasim, rahimahullah, the one who was one of the people who brought Islam to the Indian subcontinent, he was actually Muhammad bin Qasim al-Thaqfi. He was from the same land. And subhanAllah, this land produced a huge number of fighters, strong fighters, and they worked in the they went to different lands to open the lands for the first time. Okay, similarly, when we come to Yemen, Yemen also had many fighters that were produced. Not only that, another important thing about Yemen was that people from Yemen went to different regions where the land was open, and they stayed there. They stayed there and they continued to spread the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala among the people. That included the people they stayed in Iraq, Basra, Kufa, and even they went to Bilad al-Sham, Syria, which is today, as we say, is the area of Levant, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Palestine. They went and they stayed there. They went to Egypt, and when the Egypt was open, they went there and they played an important role in building the city of Fustat. Fustat, which in Arabic is referred to the land of the city of tents, which turned into Cairo. Today's Cairo was established by the Muslims. Similarly, we find many other huge cities that we see today in the world. They were started by the Muslims. There were no cities that was over there, and they were established by the Muslims. And even the establishment of the city was done in a very systematic manner. That how wide, for example, the city the lanes should be. So how many carts of the horses can pass through. And there were distinction between the main roads and the alleys, and how they were all merging towards the main center, main jama, the main masjid as well. And masjid used to be the center, and the population used to go around the masjid. But that masjid was the main masjid, which is used for, of course, all sorts of purposes. The masjid was never looked at as only a masjid that was opened up at a salat time to pray and leave. Rather, masjid is supposed to be a center for Muslims to take care of the affairs of the ummah, along with the prayers. Prayer is one of the things that you do. So that's about the Yemen. And when it comes to Bahrain, Bahrain was another one. Bahrain played a role in spreading Islam to the neighboring lands. Uthman bin al-As took Islam even from Bahrain to today's Sindh. In the time of Umar, and another report talks about Islam reached in the time of Umar al-Khattab up to Makran, which is also today's Pakistan as well. So yes, we know that later on is the Muhammad bin Qasim entered, but to the border places of Pakistan, it already reached in the time of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. So this is why when we talk about the Raja Dahir, the one who abducted the Muslim women and the children, means the Muslims were there. So Muslims were there at that time. And Bahrain when urban Bahrain was mentioned, most of the time the region of Bahrain was inclusive of Oman, and the second thing was the Yamama. We know that from Abu Hanifa, the whole issue of the Ridda from Musaylim al-Kadzab came up. But later on, at the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq, the Ridda wars, they were defeated, and then continued the rule over there. Egypt was opened by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and in general, we find that those people who take the role of opening the lands, the ones who were leading the armies, in general, they became the governors appointed by the Khalifa. In some cases, we find that And same thing we find in the case of Iraq, which is in Persia, which is one of the land of the Kisra, one of the superpowers that was also open. It started open in the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, but it continued on in the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh. And now, of course, that includes all the cities as Kufa and Madain. Madain is something which is referred as, I think they call it Mesopotamia, right? Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is referred as the city which is the oldest civilization that's continuously people have been inhabiting in that area. And that there was it was called the Madain, under the Persians. Now, when it comes to, as I said about the judges, we will talk about the governors as well. When it comes to appointment of the judges, Umar was very keen about making sure that the judges who he has been appointed, they are, first of all, they are qualified for the position, they are trustworthy, and they are suited for the position, meaning they have all the things that they need to take care of the affairs that they are running. And of course, this is besides the obligatory conditions that the Sharia place on the governor. Because the governor is a ruling position, like the Khalifa. The conditions, the basic conditions are they have to be male for it. They have to be free. They have to be sane. They have to be just. They have to have the know-how of what they are running. And there are like 6 or 7 conditions like this. And the very same one applies to the governor as well. But besides all this, when we say somebody is capable of doing things, that is assessments now needs to be made. What does it mean by somebody is capable of running the state? So one of the most important things that Umar made sure was the capability and the trustworthiness. That they are capable. Like for example, in the case of Shaykh Hamid ibn Hassana, he was appointed as the governor, but he was removed, and Muawiyah was placed as the governor by Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. And he came. Shaykh Hamid came to Umar and he said, Mu'min, have you removed me because you are not pleased with me? And Umar's response was, it's not the reason that I am not pleased with you. That I think well of you, but I want a man who is more capable. Meaning, Muawiyah was more capable for the position than Shaykh Hamid had at that time. Hence, and Umar used to make the dua, oh Allah, I complain to you of the capability of the evildoer and capability of the trustworthy one. See, sometimes a person can be trustworthy, but that very same trustworthy person, if he's not capable, that could be a disaster. Right? So this is what Allah was making sure. It's not the only issue that a person is trustworthy. Similarly, it's not the issue of a person's zuhd, a person's piety only, even though piety plays a role. But when the position is ruled over the people, it is important that the person is capable of running the affairs of the people as well. So it's not just piety who will bring a person to position that he will be ruling. You can have very pious people under you who are probably more pious than you. I'm not trying to say piety is not important, but the issue here is every position, whatever it is, it requires some sort of skills, some sort of a capability. Okay, now, I want to be a little bit careful here that we don't understand this way that as if we are trying to create a separation in the deen and the life affairs, which is the second. Of course, Islam is a way of life. Islam does not distinguishes between this way that when it comes to the spiritual aspect, you go to Islam. When it comes to political life, you go to other than Islam. This is not Islam. In both cases, the affairs must be run by Islam. Yeah? Whether it's our life affairs, whether it's our spiritual aspect, both of them. What Umar was doing here was making sure that a person who is capable of running the affairs, he has knowledge of how to run the affairs of the people, how to deal with the people. Similarly, he was also making sure that, for example, he would not city that he cannot connect to. He cannot comprehend the noise of the society. So for him to know how the people behave, it's better to have a person who understands the reality that he is going to be taken care of. So hence, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu needs to make sure that the people who he is appointed are, of course, of great virtue. They are pious, they are zahid, they are the one who are more knowledgeable in Islam as well. But if they did not have the quality of how to rule over the people, or the knowledge regarding how to run the affairs of the people, he would not assign those people. That's also an important aspect that has to be kept in mind. Now, another aspect was compassion or the mercy the person running the affairs of the people he must have. Umar needs to make sure that that's the case. One time a person was visiting Umar and he entered to Umar and he saw Umar was kissing a child. So Umar, the guy was saying, Mu'mineen, you kiss a child? So he has never kissed a child. Subhanallah. So Umar, he said, then by Allah, you are the least merciful of the people. You will never do any work for me. Meaning, he was not the one who will be assigned a task for the people. So being merciful is one of the characteristics which has to have by the person who is ruling over the people. Now, another thing Umar was sure was he never assigned any of his relatives in those positions. So he was so worried about nepotism, worried about doing extra favor to his family members. He never assigned, to the point even though his family members included Abdullah bin Umar and Sa'id bin Zayd. Sa'id bin Zayd, both of them, so Sa'id bin Zayd at least was from the very early Muslim. Very early Muslim. And he was, Abdullah Umar was also an early Muslim. He was young when he became Muslim. But Sa'id bin Zayd was from the 10 who were given that tiding of Allah about the Jannah. So he is from the Ashar al-Mubashirun, from the 10 who were given that tiding. But even then, and being very knowledgeable, being everything, but he would not assign them any kind of position, even though Sahaba came to Umar al-Khattab. They asked them, why don't you give them a position? And one time a man said, by Allah, I will tell you what he was asking. Umar asked, would that I could find a strong, trustworthy Muslim to appoint over them, also about the Kufa. The man said, by Allah, I will tell you the strong man. He said, Abdullah bin Umar. Umar said, may Allah kill you. He did not say that for the sake of Allah. And he used to say, whoever appoints a man because of friendship or blood ties, and for no other reason, has betrayed Allah and His Messenger. And subhanAllah, now, look at these characteristics. Inshallah, we'll talk about the more characteristics and how Umar was making sure about the people that were assigning and what kind of rights these rulers had in next week talk. But I'd like to compare these qualities that we have talked about today, about the governorship. We find that many of the rulers, many of the people who have some power, right away we find around the world, Muslim and non-Muslim world, that their family members are considered to be, they are by default, they have the right to take the power or the position of the power. While Islam completely the other way around. I mean, look at how he was setting up, making sure that his own family does not get engaged in any of these political positions, any of the ruling position. And even in some cases, as an outsider, if you try to read the life of Muhammad, you feel like as if he is depriving his family members from many things. And it's only because he wants to make sure that he does not use the wealth and the resources of the state in the unjust manner. Make sure that justice prevails, that he, to the extent, deprive his own family members from some of the things. It's not that he did not let them fulfill their needs or something, but he was very that by any means that the state's resources will be used by his family members just because they are the family of Khalifa, as we have discussed in the past as well. So inshallah, we'll continue about the governorship of Khalifa, which is basically we find how the state is supposed to be run, inshallah, for the future as well. And the reason that I stress all these things in our talks here is, unfortunately, in the time that we are living in, we have been completely disconnected from how the Islam runs the politics, how Islam runs the people. Ask ourselves, how many of us are aware of how the Islamic ruling structure works, while compared to the moment somebody asks about how does the ruling structure of capitalism, communism, or any of the other Islam works, we will know the answers, but not Islam. Inshallah, if there's any questions or comments about the subject covered, I'd like to answer them. Otherwise, we'll stop it.